Hello, everybody, and welcome to our session tonight for creating solidarity and social justice spaces through media literacy and practice. My name is Dr. Florian Feucht. I'm a professor at the University of Toledo, and I specialize in educational psychology, social studies, and media literacy. And the presentation is co-authored by Becky Bush and Dr. Regina Rothstein. So welcome here to MCSS annual session. I would like to introduce you to Thinking Pro, an online curriculum that we have developed, and it has been sponsored by the US Department of Agriculture and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. The Thinking Pro was by Thinking Habitats, and it has been featured also by the Institute of Education Science, that is the United States Department of Education. So let's get started. How about that? And I would like to get started with an activity. So I would love for you to post in the chat something related to your classroom goals. What are your goals for your students to create collaborative civic spaces? Maybe you can type out 3 to 4 sentences in the chat box, and then you just hit enter and we discuss it. I'm already moving ahead a little bit, so you can pause the video to see more about this. Thinking Pro, our online curriculum, uses local news media as a tool to teach critical thinking, reading comprehension, and media literacy skills in a student-centric, teacher-supported learning environment. And key features are really our reliable process that allows students to analyze, evaluate, and integrate information from news media, such as newspaper, news podcast, TV shows, things like that, websites. This is really research-based, so we met with over 80 students and many teachers in ELA and social studies in high school to develop this cognitive scaffold to help students really dig into informational text primary sources to better understand, extract the information, evaluate the information, and then integrate the information. We have interactive adaptive videos. We have a Capstone project. We use primary sources, as I mentioned earlier, the local news media, in particular, local news articles. And we also have a mindfulness activity and group discussions. Overall, the curriculum was developed as a turnkey solution, so teachers can just hop in, upload their students, and get started. The only thing that would need to be tweaked is to link in a little bit the local news websites, and often teachers pick 3 local news websites or newspapers, or they use the Google News search feature just for students to quickly find news articles in the area of their interest. So it cuts across different school subject areas. So we developed it as a integrated curriculum. So it cuts across social studies, ELA, civics, history, and all combinations of honors or AP. So it's like horizontally and virtually across high school. And that also means, you could use this across grades 9 to 12. It's very flexible in the delivery options. You can do this in person, virtual, or as simply a hybrid. Most teachers use it as a hybrid, that they do the classrooms, the discussions in the classroom and some activities in the classroom, and then other aspects like the videos or the reading assignments students do at home, or they do that online. You can stretch that out between 4 and 5 weeks. Some teachers stretch it even out to 6 to 7 weeks. Yeah, and it has been built within Moodle, so teachers are very familiar with the online environment and the gradebook and things like that. Yeah, so at the heart of this is really, how do we create and cultivate and nurture collaborative civic spaces? And we do that with Thinking Pro through group discussions that are grounded in the local community. Students pick local issues that are of interest to them. They pick news articles that intrigue them. They pick a cause around that. And then they learn how to analyze the news articles, evaluate the information, and integrate that information, create their own mental model. But they also share that with their peers in the classroom and see what they develop, and have group discussions around that. And in that, or with that approach, we kind of promote that literacy practice and different outcomes that are cut across the C3 framework. So it's like a learning pathway for students. So students first just get started reading the local newspaper to get familiar with that. And students afterwards say things like, oh, I didn't know we had a newspaper. And hey, really, there are topics that are of relevance to my life, and I find it actually interesting. So students have this aha moment that there are local sources out there that they can actually use. So they read first the local newspaper to get a little bit familiar with that news landscape, and then they acquire critical thinking skills modeled in our interactive explainer videos. They also identify a cause to own. So in the past, students in Michigan, they would pick something like water pollution, keep our waterways and lakes pollution free, or they would pick racism, or they pick teenage obesity. Well, right, recently they talked about, why can't I do sports during COVID-19 and things like that. So they pick topics that are of interest to them. So when they have picked their cause, they start, digging deeper into those news articles that speak to that cause, analyze those materials, and then they create their capstone experience. And maybe to give you a little bit more background information, that capstone experience is really built as a motivational hook to engage students. So at the beginning, they write about their cause. It's just 4 sentences. Why is this cause important to me? Why am I motivated? Why is it relevant to our community? And then they write another little blurb, 4 sentences, on the vision of their cause. What do they want to accomplish, in 1 year or 2 years? And then they write another 4 sentences about the mission. The mission is the pathway to reach the cause or their vision. And the fourth one, 4 sentences, is their personal brand. How do I want to be perceived by my peers? What are my values? So it's like 4, 4, 4, and 4, 16 sentences, and students really like to think and write about themselves. So it's like a self-authorship component. And so while they do that, they start engaging with the local news, and they try to find more information in the local news that speak to their cause. And then they create a short essay around their cause using multi-document analysis based on those 3 to 4 primary documents. And then they do an additional artifact, like they write a letter to a politician, like the governor, or they do a poem, or they do a scientific infographic. Another fun thing they love doing is a bumper sticker campaign. So they come up with 3 to 4 different bumper stickers to promote their cause, right? And we provide students with templates for all of those things. So you as teachers can just hop in and give that to the students. Another feature that we have is our reliable process. I like to say, in what ways can we talk about current and controversial issues without being called into the principal's office, right? That there are no parental complaints. And so we do have developed a nonpartisan, unbiased way of talking about current issues in the news. And the way we do that is that we give students a toolbox of critical thinking and reading comprehension that they really understand, unlock the content of informational text, the local news, evaluate it and integrate it without us saying what's the value behind it, without even touching the political landscape. Because students will use that process to really figure out what is fact-based, what is opinion-based, what is a good explanation, what's a reliable source, what's a trustworthy source. And so it's really up to the students at the end of the hour, at the end of the day, to compare and contrast different primary sources, news articles, and go like, that was really nicely factual, lots of evidence sources that I can trust, while others might be more opinion driven. And this is how it works. I have the graphic here for you. We developed that with over 80 high school students, as I mentioned earlier. So the way it works is that they read the news article, and then they need to kind of code using the W questions. Who, what, when, and where would be basic elements of a news text. And if that is supported with evidence, then we would consider a factual statement. Yay. And if it would not be supported by evidence, guess what? That would be the opinion, right? Now, and we assume here the reason why we say basic statement or simple statement is that in the news, we would assume or give credit to the journalist as a professional and say, hey, okay, we trust you with this one. Because who, what, when, and where is really easily observable or easily backed up with different types of reports and evidence. Now, when we come to why and how, you see the other side of the flow chart here. This is really about cause and effect claims, problems and solution claims, and maybe sometimes some normative claims, right? So here we say to students, okay, here you really need to do your homework, right? You need to dig deeper, understand what is the cause, what is the effect, where's the overall claim. And then step 2 would be, is it supported by evidence? If yes, it would be an explanation. And if it's not supported with evidence, you would fall back to an opinion. And here we could also discuss, the difference between explanation and argumentation. Argumentation would be more like, I try to make a compelling case towards something. So it's a certain direction built in, while an explanation should be just a very neutral representation of factual information, just like in an unbiased textbook. So, and that really works. We talk to students and ask them different versions of this cognitive scaffold and how they would like to use it and what it does to them and how they enjoy it. And this one was actually the one where they said, it's more work, but we're going to be honest, we understand the text better because we kind of forced them to do both. We needed them to unlock the content with the W questions. And then with the bottom part of the flowchart, we really ask them to go on the meta level, of knowledge and knowing and personal epistemology to really figure out what type of information is that, and can I trust this type of information? So we went from unlocking knowledge to what is my way of knowing, and do I have strategies in place that I can rely on, and that I can rely on as a teacher, as a teaching method too. So that's that flow chart here. And we build interactive explainer videos around this. So we have for the W questions an explainer video. We have an explainer video on figuring out is it a factual statement, opinion, explanation. We have an explainer video we have 7 explainer videos for critical thinking and 7 for reading comprehension, which you'll see in a second. Well, actually, right here. So, and they kind of integrate, critical thinking and reading comprehension are both. It's all about the good thinking, right? Good thinking skills. So they integrate, when you look at make inferences, it's very similar, like, extract information, check for internal logic, things like that. So they kind of cut across. And when students complete those interactive explainer videos, we found that 89% of students became proficient or above proficient with respect to reading comprehension. And with respect to critical thinking, they even became proficient or above proficient. 93% became a proficient, above proficient after they completed those critical thinking videos. And the way the videos work is like, that's where we got the grant funding to develop something cutting edge. So the videos adapt to the student abilities, and they also adapt to students' learning pace. So they are very adaptable. So students who are high performers learn something, they go a high level trail through the video with a lot of practice activities, while students who are a little bit weaker, they can go slower. They get more modeling, more narration, and they can work at their own pace, so to say. And at the end of each video, there's a proficiency score or proficiency level. So students get proficient, above proficient, and not proficient yet. And they can take the videos twice or 3 times, just the way you set it up, or you say how many attempts you want. And it's automatically tracked in the gradebook for you. And that's kind of really the fun part for the teacher. That you really see, where do my students actually stand on those 7x7 strategies, cognitive strategies. So you can really see, can they identify a claim? Can they identify evidence? Can they identify a source or evaluate a news event? So, and you see that straight in the gradebook. So for us, I like to say something like, it's like a little kind of microscope for critical thinking, for formative assessment, that it's very unique that you can see, where do my individual students stand with those different cognitive strategies. Often we just evaluate an essay or another artifact, but we don't really know what type of reading comprehension, critical thinking skills students used to get to that product, and that is a really neat way of showing students how to do the skills, modeling that, giving them the opportunity to practice that skill at their own pace, at their own ability level, and then for you to see where they kind of stand. Yep, so those are the videos. And this is how it looks overall. It's programmed in Moodle. It's very clear-cut lesson plan. You can see we have here lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 14 lessons. And one of the tricks that we used from curriculum design, our super glue, is that we use the W question not only to unlock the content at the primary document level, we also used it for students to talk and learn about their community. So you can see when it says here the what, it is all about what are issues in our local community. And you can see this here on this slide. What are current issues that, that matter to our groups in our community? And then we talk about the who are the movers and shakers, but who are also the other people engaged, or who are the people who are not engaged in our community? When do they meet? Where do they meet? Why do they meet? What drives them? What's their motivation? And how do they go about, fostering their community, improving their community, maintaining their community, all those aspects. So we have the W questions at the micro level, text analysis but we also have that as a group discussion at the community level. And that works really, really well. We have scaffolds for you, that you can use for, to engage students in those discussions. And then what you can see here, activities. We have a news media mindfulness activity. That's kind of a bell ringer. That's a group discussion, front porch discussion. We have slides that pertain to the meta knowledge that they need to know. For example, here, news as a knowledge source. Then you see an explainer video, how to activate your background knowledge, and then they get started, at least in lesson 3. What is your cause for your capstone? Start your resource file. So it's really straightforward. It's very challenging with the instructional interactive videos because it's new to the students, but they can retake them at their own pace. But the rhythm and it's a little bit repetitive. So they really know lesson by lesson. It starts always the same way. We have the news media mindfulness activity, then we have the discussions, then they hop into the videos, and then they have a close reading writing assignment. And then it's very similar the next lesson. But they like that because it's very cognitive engaging. They are very motivated through the capstone. And then that repetitiveness throughout the 14 lessons helps them big time, helps you big time, because you kind of know that rhythm, right? I have here another lesson, lesson 7. So we have here, oops, do I have a question in the chat? Yeah, exactly. Yep. They know what's expected. They can plan ahead. And I think what happens also is like at the beginning, when students, there's also a pre-test and a post-test. And when they take the pre-test, which is scored but not counted towards their grade, they go like, oh, bummer, I couldn't pull that one off. And why did I not get the best grade or not, with the videos? And then so there's like a little ditch here. And so we really need to cheer them up. And then I think day 3, they figured out what's expected from them. They have figured out that they can retake the videos, and they go back and retake the videos. So, and we have some gamifications in the videos. So if you are proficient, it's like a walking person in green, yay. And then if you're above proficient, it's the same walking person with a little crown on. And then we didn't plan for that, but teachers starting handing out fist bumps for students who got the little crown. And then, they all got more and more engaged. So it's kind of really nice. So you can see here, that's the capstone workshop, still a media mindfulness activity. And then students share their project choices and submit their final capstone experience. With everything, we do have grading rubrics. They're ready to go. Not complex, but very precise. And that's something else that teachers really have appreciated, that you get a good understanding with that rubric what the students is expected to do. The students see the rubric ahead of time, so they know what's coming. So that's really kind of ideal. We try to shy away from very detailed, extensive, long rubrics because it's so hard, to understand and explain to students all those multiple facets. So we have really straightforward rubrics. Yeah, and that's kind of interesting, your questions in the chat. The opportunity for students to figure out concepts that they haven't understood yet. And that was something that we learned with the interactive videos, so there are activities in there, right? And students, so the idea of the videos is we model, show the students how to do it, and then the students do it on their own. And that's the activity. And then they get feedback on that. So we ask the students, when you got it right, do you still want to have feedback? I mean, beyond you got it right, do you want to know why you got it right? And we actually thought they wouldn't want to know. just students who didn't get it right, but they actually said, no, we do want to know, because maybe I was just guessing, or, I had that, that feeling that would be the right answer. And so they really asked for that. And then when like, okay, it's, if you get the right answer and you can have 2 or 3 attempts. So what we did then is we built in a random item bank, so they get different activities. So it's not that they can write down the answer and fly through the next time just because they wrote down the answer. So, but it's really interesting. We learned a lot, that they preferred the rigor, the additional rigor of the W questions, that they did want to have feedback. What is the right answer? Even though they got the answer right, that's kind of really interesting. Yeah. The media mindfulness activity is also interesting, because what students do here is we handed out sticky notes each lesson, and they just write down 1 sentence of a news event that happened to them today or yesterday, and they write down their initials as the author and maybe the source where they got it from, either by watching it, hearing it, or from TV or radio. And it can be anything. It can be the barn burnt down next door, or I saw on TV that, or my cat and my dog had a fight, or my grandparents are coming to visit. It's all good. We all accept it. And then we have like a quadrant model or a diagram like this, and it's like they need to put their sticky note there. And one coordinate is good news, bad news, or makes me happy, makes me feel bad. And then we have useful, not useful. And then they need to kind of figure out where do they stick it. And they come up to the board and then they put it there and they explain why they put it there. And it's kind of really interesting to see what students pick as news and how they consider it as good, not good, useful, not useful. And that's also an activity, where we have to be really careful about, we have to hold our horses, right? So because they will test us, or they test us with respect to how we react to it from a political perspective. So here's an example. So a student came up and said, well, Biden got elected. That's bad, but it's useful to know, right? So, and then they stick it there and they look you straight in the eyes because they want to know how you react to it. And the only thing you are supposed to do in this activity is just to figure out the internal logic of the students, why they wrote that and where that they put it at the right spot. So it's not for you to comment on, is that right or wrong, right? So it's really about figuring out, did the student place it in the right spot? Were they mindful what that news event does to them? How do they feel about it? What do they think about where their feelings are coming from? They love this activity. We have no idea. So it's really fun. But they test. They absolutely test. Yeah, so the justification would be interesting as far as how they determine the usefulness comment in the chat. Yeah, so I think we keep it really simple because everybody does that bell ringer. And they know expectation, we do it every time. So they already think about what they bring along. So it's really quick. But we do have another activity. It's called newsworthy, not newsworthy. So they need to pick one article that's newsworthy, explain why that is, and then an article that is not newsworthy to them and explain short, just 3 to 4 sentences why it is not newsworthy to them. And it's very insightful what you learn about your students. And then teachers go like, did you see what they write? And we go like, yeah, we saw what they write, but you're not going to comment on that, right? It's the student's perspective. You've got to hold your horses, so there are some, the process is unbiased or the reliable process is unbiased and nonpartisan. And the bell ringer, you really need to be careful. You just need to do the coordinate system, the coordinate model. And the newsworthy, not newsworthy, you just read and give feedback if it's a good argument or not without putting a value judgment to it. So, but it's so insightful what students bring, into your classroom, what news matters to them, what makes them sad, what makes them angry, what makes them happy. It's just really good. And it's like they become mindful what the news does to them. So they become more empowered and can control more what they allow the news to do to them. So we try to switch that, that they are not passive victims in parentheses of the news, that they're just consumers, but that they can also actively seek out good news that they can use for informed decision making to drive their action at home in their community. So we want to have them empowered using the news as a primary source for knowledge. Okay, next slide. Oh, those are our artifacts, right? So I brought a couple of artifacts along. That's Jamie, 9th grade. Her course was all around Black Lives Matters. And you can see here on the left side why she picked that. We offer students also the vignettes from the United Nations, the Sustainability Development Goals. There are different aspects, your categories to think about local issues, and that was very helpful for students. So this one is going to fall in the peace section, so to say. And then, so you can see here those 4 sentences about her cause. That's what Jamie wrote. And then here's another example from her. So she picked an article, Pinckney protest against racism draws some racist responses, many supporters. And then what is the newspaper? Who is the journalist or author? It's MLA, right? The date, and then the complete MLA citation. And then here is the task that she completed, identify a claim. And then she's summarizing this article, and then at the end she says the main claim of this article is that there was a protest in Pinckney, and that though not everybody may see it, racism is still alive and well in the town. And then she went for the bumper sticker campaign. So she came up with 1, 2, 3, 4 different bumper stickers, where she thought that would be a way of representing different perspectives to racism / Black Lives Matters. And so, the idea is you put bumper stickers on your car, and then that's a way of how you can have people in your community, people who drive behind you, see about, different perspectives about Black Lives Matters. Another example here is from Alex. It's about the climate. The cause is described here. So it's dealing about waste properly and having less pollution. It aligns with a sustainability goal. You don't need to use the sustainability goals. It's just, for us, it was like starting points for students where they would say, oh, what could I do? What could I think of as a cause? Because not every day, if they are supposed to find a cause in the current news, it might not be a topic today or yesterday or this week, right? So for them to have a different perspective of what could be causes I'm interested in, and then I go and search for it, that was very productive for students, like little anchors or starting points, so to say. And here, you already know the table here. So Alex picked an article, Can You Save Money and the Environment? New plan for Metro Detroit sewage has that goal. And then the activity was to identify evidence, right? So he wrote a short summary and then he explained what that evidence was. And so they do this, right, with 4 articles: identify claims, identify evidence, identify the sources. So they work really through those interactive explainer videos, the skills, and then they do the activities associated with that. And then Alex chose to write a poem, so, and we have rubrics for all of those different artifacts. And, writing a poem is different than a speech or a scientific infographic. So, but we thought, students should not only do the critical thinking, they also should do the creative thinking, if they are interested in this aspect, applying Gardner's multiple intelligences here. So Alex wrote a poem. Last comment in the chat. Choices are always great to allow students to choose to show their learning in a way that showcases their skills. Yeah, so it's also like, that capstone experience with what's my cause, vision, mission, and how do I want to be perceived, my personal brand, is that self-authorship, and that is typically done with college-age students. And we went like, well, how about we try that with high schoolers and make it more simple and make it more focused. And so it's 16 sentences, 4 by 4, right? And that is also becoming part of their showcase or of their little portfolio, right? This is the course I care about. This is the multiple document analysis that I did. This is the short essay that I wrote up integrating the information from those 4 articles. And here's my artifact, right? My poem, my letter, whatever. And it becomes a really beautiful showcase for them. And then they present that in class. Some teachers have invited parents to come along. So teachers are very comfortable with this approach. I think also because the kids get to pick the topics. So, who can blame you, so it's a really safe way. So this is about electric vehicles. Oops. And here I need to see what's written here. Identify claims again, MLA, and they put this in a bigger and bigger file with all their 3 to 4 articles that they analyze. We call that the resource file. Works very well. Oh, and Robin wrote a letter to the politician, in this case, Governor Whitmer. So, and then, we need to report also to the principals, and they say like, well, did they send the letter to Governor Whitmer? And we're like, well, that's up to the student if they want to or not. So, so if this stays within the classroom, or if you invite parents, or if they actually send out that letter, it's up to them. Here's a creating rubric. For example, here is the Capstone project. So paper and artifact, that short essay. So it's always like 0 points, 5, middle column, and then high achieving column. And so we have paper artifact, paper and artifact, well, paper artifact length and content requirements, integration of information, paper and artifact design and structure, and then MLA citations. Do they have everything that we asked them to do? Comment in the box. Anytime you can elevate the audience, it definitely helps drive quality of work and often buy-in from students. Absolutely. Yep. And I think that relates also to the Capstone experience as a showcase, but also here to, the Capstone by itself, that it's a showcase for students and that students know what's expected from them using the rubrics. And as I said earlier, when students log in and they see the assignment, they also see the rubric up front, so they know what's expected from them. Activity number 2, my questions would be, how could you see yourself using these components to accomplish your goal of creating a collaborative civic spaces for your students? So I don't know, do you want to do the activity? Yes, awesome, fantastic. And then you can just post it whenever you're ready. Yay, I would love to use this to get students interested and excited about engaging with their communities. Yep. So the whole all aspect, not only just reliable process or primary sources, the whole thinking pro 0.0, that would be awesome. Yep. So, and then something from Adam too. I love the concept of news mindfulness. You have the ability to learn so much about your students, what is important and relevant to them. This could take place in any classroom. Yeah, and it's kind of really neat routine too. And you can do this beyond, thinking pro implementation, so to say. So, and it's a good habit, and it's mindfulness is on vogue, and it is good for the students because they are overwhelmed with all that information flooding in on them. I also really like the idea of teaching students how to critically evaluate media sources. Yeah, and that's tricky, right? So, we don't typically use in the curriculum the words fake news, because it's really up for the students to use the toolbox, the interactive videos to learn those skills. But this is what that is really about. What are trusted sources? What are reliable sources? And where to find them, right? And here, so we have classroom support. So for example, we worked in the past and still next year with Pinckney Community High School. So we are supported at the school level, and then at the district level, for example, Ottawa Area Intermediate School District. We have professional development and connections, and to round this up, what's happening at the school level. And then we collaborate with MCSS at the state level. And then pre and post test assessment. I think I need to get a little bit quicker. 38% of the students improved with respect to understanding, reading comprehension, critical thinking, and news media literacy. So you can see the blue mountain is where the students were at the beginning, and the orange mountain is like how everything shifted towards the end of the scale. And that's what we really want to see, right? In a good evidence, empirical driven curriculum. We did ask students how they like this, what you're exposing them to. And so 84% agreed that it helped them to be more mindful of how they engage in the news. 80% felt empowered with the thinking tools, and they considered them relevant for their decision making. This was a biggie for us, that they really thought good skills for life. They engaged more into listening to and sharing ideas with their peers, helped them feel more connected to their local communities, challenged their learning and thinking more than other courses, and it required them to work harder than in other courses. That's probably because they weren't used that critical thinking was front and center, right? So that is new to them. That's often new for teachers too. The interactive videos do allow students individually to learn all those skills at their pace, and then teachers are more in charge of moderating and coaching students to what is a good cause to pick, and moderating the group discussions. And we have some teacher quotes. Overall, it's very easy to integrate, and I'm happy to share the presentation with you. If you drop me your email in the chat, I can do that. I don't think there's a way for me to upload it in the conference platform. So if you put your email there, that would be great. So, and what we are doing, we still have funding left. So we would love to onboard more teachers right after summer break to implement the front porch experience. We would have, well, we have some training sessions in summer, and you would get CEUs for that. We have a community of practice, and if you can manage to pull that off, pretty early after summer, we can even pay you still a stipend to offset your efforts. So it's a little bit of money towards for you, how you ever want to spend it. So, yep. Any questions?
You might have said this at the beginning, but I probably missed it. I was just wondering how Thinking Pro got started. Is this like from out of Thinking Habits, obviously? Is that out of Michigan, or how did that get started?
Yeah, we are located in Detroit. And so I'm a university professor, and what they do is they don't give you credit for curriculum development anymore. So we were able to create thinking habitats, and we're able to attract through that venue federal and state funding. And that's how we have been operating for the last 3 years.
Awesome, thank you.
Awesome. So I'll send you all the materials via email. Thank you for joining and participating.
Yeah, I had fun. It was awesome.
Awesome.
It's a really cool idea, I think. And it's nice to have something, as you said at the beginning, turnkey, because a lot of teachers don't have time to, sit down and modify. So having something ready to go is amazing for them.
Yeah, and they like the grading rubrics. So, and we are there to help, with uploading students into the shell and ready to go.